Agni Purana. The Agni Purana is a Sanskrit text and one of the 18th major Purans of the Hinduism. The text is variously classified as a Puran related to Shaivism, Vaishnavism, Shaktism, and Smartism, but also considered as a text that covers them all impartially without leaning towards the particular theology. The text exists in numerous versions, some very different from others. The published manuscripts are divided into 382 or 383 chapters containing between 12,000 to 15,000 verses. The chapters of the text were likely composed in different centuries, with earliest version probably around the 7th century but before the 11th century, because the early 11th century Persian scholars Al-Biruni acknowledged its existence in his memorial on India. The youngest layer of the text in the Agni Purana may be from the 17th century. Tradition has it that its title is named after Agni because it was originally recited by Agni to the sage Vasishta when the latter wanted to learn about the Brahman, and Vasishta later recited it to Vyas, the sage who compiled all the Vedas, Purans, and many other historic texts. The Skanda Puran and Matsya Puran assert that the Agni Puran describes Isan Kalpa as described by god Agni, but the surviving manuscripts make no mention of Isan Kalpa. Similarly, medieval Hindu texts cite verses that they claim are from Agni Puran, but these verses do not exist in current editions of the text. These inconsistencies considered together have led scholars such as Rajendra Hazra to conclude that the extant manuscripts are different from the text Skanda and Matsya Purans are referring to. The earliest core of the text is likely a post-7th century composition, and a version existed by the 11th century. The chapters that discusses grammar and lexicography may be an addition in the 12th century, while the chapters on metrics likely predate 950 CE because Pingala Sutra, text by the 10th century scholar Halyadhura, cites this text. This section on poetics is likely a post-900 CE composition, while its summary on Tantra is likely to be a composition between 800 and 1100 CE. The contents of Agni Purana. Chapter 1. The presently available Agni Purana consists 383 chapters. The last chapter of the text gives a list of 50 topics discussed in the text. After the customary opening, that is chapter 1, the text describes the 10 avatars of Vishnu in detail. Chapter 2 to 4 deals with the Matsya and Karma and Vraha avatar respectively. Next 7 chapters are the summaries of 7 kandas of the Ramayana. Chapter 12 is a summary of Harivamsha. Chapter 13 to 15 narrate the story of the Mahabharata. Chapter 16 describes Buddha and Kalki as the avatars of Vishnu. Chapter 17 to 20 describe the 5 essential characteristics of a Puran. Chapter 21 to 70 consists a discussion between Narad, Agni, Hayagriva, and Bhagwan. These chapters deal with the religious bathing, construction of a kund, the mudras, the mode of worship of Vasudeva, Samkarshna, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, consecration of an image, architecture of a temple, iconography of the image, the worship of Shaligrama, the ruler of the installation of the image and repairs of a temple. The subject of chapter 71 is the worship of Ganesh. Chapter 75 to 105 relate to the worship of the Ling and the several manifestations of Devi. These chapters also contain the discussion on the method of establishing Agni, Kanda worship, Kapila worship, and consecration of a temple. Chapter 106 discusses about the Vastu related to the cities. Chapter 107 is devoted to the creation of Swayambha Bhuma Manu. Chapter 108 is the Bhuvan Kush. Chapter 109 to 116 describes a number of the Trihatas. Chapter 117 deals with the ancestral rites. Chapter 118 to 120 describes the Puranic concepts of the geography of India and the other parts of the world, and also the Puranic perceptions about the distances between various regions of the world. Chapter 121 to 149 deals with the various aspects of astronomy and astrology. Chapter 150 deals with the periods of Manvantras in the names of the Manus. Chapter 151 to 167 deals with the duties associated with the different Varnas. Chapter 168 to 174 discusses about the expiations of various kinds of sins. Chapter 175 to 207 describes about the performance of number of vrats. Chapter 208 to 217 describes about the various religious gifts and vows. Chapter 218 to 248 deals with the various aspects of the statecraft. Chapter 249 to 252 discusses in detail about the archery and the weapons associated with it. Chapter 254 to 258 discusses the judicature and law. This part of the text is literally same as the Matikshara. The next chapters 259 to 271 deals with the miscellaneous topics regarding the pursuit of the Vedas. Chapter 272 deals with the gifts to be made when the Purans are read. This chapter contains a list of the Purans and the number of verses each Puran contains. Chapter 273 to 278 deals with the genealogy of the Puranic dynasties. Chapter 279 to 300 deals with the various branches of medicine. Chapter 301 to 316 deals with the worship of Surya and various mantras, out of which chapter 309 to 341 deals with the mantras of worshipping of goddess Davitra. In chapter 317 to 326, Ishwar speaks to Skanda regarding the worship of Shiva's Gana, Vageshwari, Agroha, Pashupata, Rudra, and Gauri. Chapter 327 consists of the glorification of establishing a ling in a temple. Chapter 328 to 335 summarizes Pingala Sutras on metrics and an unknown commentary on it. Chapter 336 has rudimentary discussion about Vedic phonetics. The subject of the next two chapters is poetics and rhetoric. Chapter 338 contains a list of different types of Sanskrit drama. Chapter 339 to 340 deals with the four details of displaying sentiments and emotions during acting. Chapter 341 to 342 discusses about the actions and movements of the limbs of an actor and the definition of the dramatic representation. The discussions regarding the various figures of speech are found in chapters 343 to 345. The definitions found in these chapters are same as those of Kavyadarsha of Dandin. The merits and demerits of a composition are discussed in chapter 346 to 347. Chapter 348 consists a list of monosyllabic words. The chapters 349 to 359 deals with the rules of Sanskrit grammar, which is an abstract of the Chandra Vyakran. Chapter 360 to 367 are basically a lexicon on the pattern of Amaroksha. Chapter 369 to 370 consists the discussions of human anatomy. Chapter 371 describes various types of naraks. Chapter 372 to 376 deals with both the Raja Yoga and the Hatha Yoga. The subjects of the chapter 377 to 380 is the philosophy of Vedanta and the knowledge of Brahma. Chapter 381 consists a gist of the Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 382 is a version of the Yamagita. In chapter 383 consists the verses describing the glorification of the Agni Purana.